Game 3. Pitching matchup. McCullers Syndergaard for game 3. Phillies are an underdog, Zerillo, at home. Plus 110 over at BetMGM. And the Astros are minus 130. Astros currently the front runner as well for the series price at minus 175 on BetMGM, plus 145 for the Phillies. Total sitting at 8 runs. Noah Syndergaard's pitching. I might know where this is going. All joking aside, Zerillo, your outlook for so far, how you've process the series and your thoughts for game 3.
So I'm at Houston around 60% before the series to win the series. After game 1, push Philly to about 59%. After game 2, tied 1-1, going to Philly for 3 games. Have Houston at 57%. That's about minus 132. If you're looking to bet the series price, if you don't have futures on either side of it, I would say the Phillies are the value side to about plus 144. If you do have few Phillies futures that you're looking to hedge off of here, I said that you would be able to find a better price on Houston after game 2 than you found before game 1. And it is moved about 20 cents relative to where it was before the series. So if you're looking to hedge out now, this is the opportunity. I said that you would have at a better price. I'm not hedging personally just because it's not my style. Don't want to dilute the ROI on my ticket. But if you do want to hedge, now would be the time, because these next 2 pitching matchups are pretty rough for the Phillies. Anticipated, obviously, game 3, we're getting Syndergaard and McCullers, but then game 4, presumably Ranger Suarez going against Christian Javier. I'm very high on Javier, and Suarez puts the Astros in their superior split. As for game 3, both teams going to be back in their lesser split offensively here. I discussed before game 1 when both teams are facing right-handed pitching. I do favor the Phillies offense ever so slightly. Advantages to the Astros in terms of bullpen, defense, starting pitcher is fairly obvious. We will go into that deeper in a moment, though. In the bullpens, Ryan Presley, Rafael Montero, both worked in both games for the Astros. Every other pitcher worked in one game at most thus far in this series, but everybody got the day off yesterday. The question is how the managers are going to handle game 3, knowing that they have to play 3 days in a row, particularly the Phillies. With Syndergaard, does he just go once through the order like he did in that elimination game against the Braves? Or potentially, does he try to go deeper? Does Thompson push him further because they need to try to save their bullpen? So how the Phillies handle Syndergaard, I think, is going to be intriguing. I would probably avoid betting his strikeout props. If he gets shelled early, they may just leave him in and let him eat it and try to get the bullpen saved for a day. If he's keeping it close and competitive, they may yank him and you may get an under hit when it looks like he's pitching fine. So going to be a bit bizarre in terms of how they use him. He is much better against righties than lefties. 384 expected FIP against righties this season, 4.9 against lefties. So those at bats against Alvarez and Tucker are going to be crucial. Probably do not want him facing them more than once each. His velocity, all of his underlying metrics dipped this year relative to pre-injury levels. Velocity down 3.5 miles an hour. Throwing lots of sinkers. So you're going to want to target hitters who hit sinkers well. Alvarez and Jose Altuve would be the guys who stand out against sinkers. On the other side of the matchup with McCullers, mostly curve slider change from him. He throws his fastball about as infrequently as any starting pitcher in baseball. And when he does throw it, it's a sinker. Historically, he has reverse splits, but he's been throwing his slider way more often of late, where traditionally he used the curveball until last season, and that's what caused the reverse split. So I actually think he can normalize his splits, if not pitch well against both righties and lefties by using the curveball more against lefties. But the guys who stand out on the Phillies side in terms of having success against the sinker slider combination that McCullers uses are Kyle Schwarber and Rhys Hoskins. So those are the 2 guys I'm going to look at in terms of prop betting. In terms of my projection and how I would bet game 3 itself, the Astros for the first 5 innings was the one thing that stood out. I projected that at minus 134. I like that up to about minus 125 for the first 5 innings and for the first 3 innings as well. I've seen some better numbers for the first 3 innings for the Astros than I've seen for first 5, and that doesn't make any sense to me since Syndergaard may only be in there one time through the order for those first 3 innings. So the first 5 for the Astros, both up to minus 125. And then once Syndergaard comes out, if there's some early scoring, I'm going to be targeting a live under 9 in this game as well.
Okay, very good. Minus 125 for the first 5 available now at BetMGM. First 3 at minus 130. So that is something to monitor. And that might be a reflection of Noah Syndergaard and what kind of leash he may have or not have in how long of a leash that is, of course, for game 3 on Monday night. Colin Whitchurch, how about yourself? Same 2 questions. Where you're at processing this World Series and how it may affect betting game 3.
I have much less to say about the series as a whole than Zerillo did. I have a pre-series bet on the Phillies. My mindset going into the series in a potential live bet was if the Phillies were able to win the first 2 games behind Nola and Wheeler, that would have been the time for me to throw some Houston's way, likely at plus money with the 2 positive pitching matchups in game 3 and 4. Obviously, the Astros won game 2, so throw that out the window. I'm riding with my pre-series bet in that regard. In terms of game 3, I am equally fascinated in what Rob Thompson's going to do with Noah Syndergaard. I think when we came into this series, we all assumed Ranger Suarez was going to get game 3. Obviously pushed him back to game 4. I don't know if that was a preconceived idea or if it had to do with the fact that Suarez pitched in relief in game 1. That was conceivably would have been his bullpen throw day anyway. But I trust Rob Thompson entirely with what he's done with this pitching staff. I think that he has been pulling all the right strings all series long. We always talk about the unquantifiability of a manager's impact on an individual game. You know, I came to Action from Baseball Prospectus, where we look for ways to quantify literally everything you possibly can. But a manager's impact is one of the most difficult things to quantify, because once the game begins, they only have so much control. Pinch hits, strategic uses, bullpen use, and starting pitcher matchups. That's essentially it. And Thompson has done everything right in that regard. I think that his value to the Phillies has been about as stark as you can imagine from a manager. I mean, I know people talked about this a lot toward the end of the season about the difference between Thompson and Girardi, and did the players play harder? Did they just enjoy being around Thompson more? But he just really seems to pull all the right strings. And in starting Syndergaard instead of Suarez here, I think what he's saying is, I want my all hands on deck bullpen day to be with my bullpen as rested as possible. Obviously, he didn't know how game 2 was going to play out, but the Phillies ended up only using Bilotti, Brogdon, and Hand out of the bullpen. That's 3 of their least kind of high profile relievers you can get. Hand is only a low stakes reliever. Brogdon's only a low stakes reliever. Bilotti, we've seen kind of as a piggyback from a starting pitching standpoint, but with Syndergaard in there, they had Sunday off, Saturday, none of their key relievers pitched. Going in to Monday as full strength as possible behind Syndergaard is going to be fascinating. We saw, a lot of people have compared what the Phillies have done and what Thompson has done to what the Nationals did a couple of years ago with their kind of mix and match bullpen, because it struggled a lot during the season. They found the hot arms. They brought them in the right times. Thompson's done plenty of unconventional things using Jose Alvarado in the 5th inning. That's just not something you see managers do very often. So what's he going to do behind Thor is extremely fascinating to me. Could we see Alvarado come in a big spot in the 3rd or 4th inning even? Are we going to see several innings of Eflin? Are we going to see more Bilotti? I'm not really sure, but one thing I'm sure of is that I trust Thompson to pull the right strings. Having said all of that, I still think the Astros offense and the pitching matchup of McCullers versus Syndergaard / whoever they come in after Syndergaard is enough to play the Astros on the first 5 innings. I'm with Zerillo on that. I also am going to be really interested in how the Phillies offense can do against McCullers. Zerillo mentioned Schwarber. Really great matchup for Schwarber against McCullers and his pitch mix. McCullers actually started against the Phillies back at the end of October. looking back at those lineups, they were relatively similar to what we're going to see on Monday night, and Schwarber did take McCullers deep. Obviously, you don't want to dig too deep into pitcher versus hitter individual results because they're not that telling. But looking at Schwarber's full-time success against McCullers, and also the fact that he hit a homer off him about 3.5 weeks ago, really like him. I'm going to be looking to play his props big time on Monday night. But again, McCullers, I think, has a big enough edge over whatever Philly does with its bullpen situation that I like them to -125 in the first 5 innings. I am going to take the bait, however, on a total that is higher than we're going to see the rest of the series. We saw these 6.5s out there with these Sterling pitching matchups. It's 8 right now on the full game because it's Syndergaard versus McCullers, and I'm going to take the bait and take an over here just because I think the Phillies do match up well against McCullers. We saw the Astros bullpen get hit hard a little bit on Saturday night. I know they only allowed, a couple of hits, an unearned run, but Montero was getting tagged pretty well in that outing, throwing 33 pitches. A lot of them just happened to find gloves. I think the Astros bullpen is starting to show a little bit of cracks, and that's going to be big as the series wears on. And also, like Zerillo said, how much is Dusty Baker and Thompson going to manage this with the understanding that they have to play Tuesday and Wednesday as well? So if things get out of hand for either side, we could see some more low risk relievers enter the game. So I like the over 8 here. I'm staying away from the first 5 total, but Astros first 5, full game over 8. And if things blow up early, I might look in at a live under as well, like Zerillo mentioned, try to middle a little bit.